Welcome back, friends, fans, and followers. It's Sam Dobrow, and my talk today is about Orient Expression, a photographer's journey to Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam. That's a book that I've recently published. It's about 100 pages long, and it's really a combination of a book of fine art photography and a travel book and a journey, a personal journey. So I'd like to get started with this. I can't begin to cover everything that's in the book, but I will cover the highlights of various places, and I hope you will enjoy this. This is quite a fascinating journey to Indochina. This is the book that's available on my website. Be sure to check back after the talk if you'd like to get your own copy. It's a 12 by 12 hardbound book, 110 pages, and it presents a personal expression of my journey to the four nations in Southeast Asia, generally known as Indochina. It's a land with a long history of people that have faced brutal wars and invading armies for generations. And I'll share with you my impressions and certainly how this journey changed my perception of Indochina in a very big way. Book cover, it's a cover of an infrared photograph, and I'll talk a little bit more about infrared photography as far as how it fits into this journey and the photographs that I took. Back cover, also a infrared photograph, bringing in beautiful colors, stunning scenes with just an amazing color palette. The journey begins in Bangkok. We were sitting on the top of our hotel roof and looking across the river at this temple. It's called Wat Arun. This was also an infrared photo. And I'll start off telling you a little bit about why there's infrared photography in this book. Other than the fact that it has beautiful color impacts, it works best in the time of day when regular photography is just terrible. In regular photography, we look for long shadows, we look for interesting light. However, in the middle of the day when the sun is straight above, it's usually very high contrast, not very good for an artistic photo, certainly nothing like you would expect in a beautifully toned black and white photograph that has deep shadows and beautiful highlights. But with infrared, it needs that high contrast setting to really bring out the scene. So when I was in places that this lighting just wasn't suitable for traditional photography, I switched over to my infrared camera and was able to capture some very interesting photos at all times of the day. And this was pretty much close to noon. Sun was right above, and it was a very harsh lighting experience, which turned into a great infrared photo from beginning our trip in Bangkok, which many people call the gateway to Indochina. We also went to a floating market. While we were there, we were there in the morning, and we noticed that the monks were going around collecting their alms, which is charity. That's of food and other means that's given to the monks who have dedicated their life to a life without material possession. They pretty much give up all material possessions to become a monk, and that's very much part of the Buddhist religion, which is kind of an under theme in this visit about how a country, how many countries and a people can live in poverty without much material wealth, material possessions, and find happiness. And that's really at the core of the Buddhist religion. This is the floating market. It's called Dam Noen Sudak. It's the largest floating market in Thailand and probably one of the largest in Southeast Asia. It was built centuries ago. This long straight canal connected two areas of commerce, and at each end was were the markets where people would bring their goods by boat and sell them. Here we have what is called the White Temple. It's to the Thai people. It's called Wat Rong Kun. It's a very modern temple, and it's a project that has gone under construction for very, very long periods of time, decades. I believe it was inspired by the Familia church that's in Barcelona that took centuries to complete and is still under construction right now. These temples for Buddhism in Thailand have been under this construction stage for many, many decades. Or I should say they are planned to be under construction for many decades, continuing to expand and grow. The theme of this temple is kind of an allegory to Dante's heaven and hell. The Buddhists believe that life and suffering is tied to material possessions and the wanting of material possessions. And hence at the bottom of this, you see all these people suffering, just this massive pool of people suffering. And the only way to escape the suffering is to shed yourself of all material possessions. And as you walk through this temple, as it slowly rises up to the top, you see more of you see enlightenment, and you see freedom from possessions, and reaching this sense of holy salvation from the terrors of the world. This is another temple on the inside. It's called the Blue Temple. It was designed by one of the students of the architect of the White Temple. It has some similarities in design, which can be seen in common. But the thing that I love about this is it's beautiful space, the sense of scale, this giant Buddha at the front. I guess I should say the back. That's considered the back of the temple. The front is where you enter. But this was an amazing building, both inside and out. We visited some of the tribal villages in northern Thailand, near Chiang Rai. This village was mostly a village of refugees that had fled from Burma. There's a lot of persecution and prejudice and acts of violence that are taken out against women and these native tribal people. This woman and her child is from the Karen, Karen tribe. They're also known as the Long Neck Women tribe. They start off at a young age, and they start putting these rings around their neck, which appear to stretch their neck. But what in reality happens is the weight of these pushes down their shoulder blades, which causes the elongation of the neck. And there are a lot of myths, I guess, about why they wear these. I guess some of the more common ones is it was supposed to be protecting the women from being attacked and killed by tigers. If you pick up some of these rings, they're really a coil more than they are rings. But a coil that's the size of the one that the adult woman is wearing is probably about 20 to 25 pounds, and it's a very heavy, very sturdy coil. And each year they take the coil off and they make a larger one and put it around their neck. I have no idea how they get them on or off, but it is an amazing thing to see see them wear these things. I really love the beauty of this portrait, the between the mother and the child. It's such a moment of endearment. When I went to the village, you pay a very small admission price to get in, and that helps support the villagers that are here as refugees. They each have their own little shops, little pavilions where they sell handcrafts, and When we were there, we didn't see any men. The men, I believe, are out farming, and the women were there doing things such as weaving, making handcrafts, and they did not mind having their picture taken at all. They would be they would look at you and even pose a little bit with the slightest gesture. I didn't say much. I would just walk up at a distance with my telephoto, point to the camera, and make a gesture, and they would nod yes, and they would smile, and they were very happy that we were there, taking their photos, buying their goods. This woman had a hard time with her daughter, who didn't want to be there. She was crying, and the woman felt a little bit, I guess, embarrassed that she couldn't get the child to pose. But then I had a postcard with some of my artwork on it. I walked up and I handed it to the child, and she looked at it. It was some of my surreal work. She looked at it, and then she looked up at me as to really this sense of curiosity, just staring at me, wondering who I was and what I was all about. Managed to get this beautiful shot of both her and her mother. This was another girl. She's from a related tribe to the Karen. I don't know if she's part of the Karen tribe or just a similar tribe. These tribes come from China. They come from the northwestern provinces of China. They've worked their way through Burma, and eventually they have emigrated, and seek of sanctuary in northern Thailand, where they are welcomed in these communities that are set up for tourists to come by and learn about their crafts and their culture. These two young girls were some of the most entrepreneurial that I had run across anywhere. We pulled on the aside the road when we were traveling between destinations to go to this little village. It was like a raised wooden walkway that went back in through the jungle, and all along the way were different local tribes. They had their little pavilions, and these girls were absolutely relentless in pitching something they had made for $1. Anything you wanted for $1, and I ended up buying a little tiny coin purse from the young lady with the big smile on the left, and she was so happy. But unfortunately, as soon as I did this, I had a dozen other girls that were also just climbing on me, begging me to buy theirs, and I ended up having to buy about half a dozen of these before I said, no more, please, no more, and I had to leave because I couldn't buy one from everybody. But they're such adorable kids, and the look in their eyes, the beauty of their eyes, the purity of their expression, the excitement just to see someone come by and to spend $1 buying some of their handcrafts. It's just, it was just an amazing experience. This girl was a little bit more shy, but she certainly wasn't shy about staying with her friend, who had to be the top saleswoman in the entire village. This was a really interesting day trip when we went to visit the Akha-tribe. The Akha-tribe, this is an autonomous tribe. They do not live in one of the tourist support villages. This is way off the beaten path. We rode on our vehicles for about 2 hours until we came to a point where we met our guide, and we all got into four-wheel vehicles, about 2 of us per vehicle. Actually, I think it was 4 of us per vehicle, plus the driver. And we were gone for about an hour off-roading, crossing rivers without bridges, steep hills, and definitely someplace you could not get without a 4-wheel drive. And then we pull into this little village where this road goes straight down the hill, and it ends in the center of this village. And as we're arriving, we hear this voice over a PA system, and the PA system is announcing our arrival. Of course, we, as the photographers, had no clue what we're up against. So we get out and we're just standing around while our guide talks to the chief. And we didn't realize that these women, these two in particular, were sizing us up, and they were laughing and chuckling and giggling about us. And we didn't realize that they knew that we were here to photograph them. But once our group got organized, we took a walk into the tea fields, and both of these women were absolutely wonderful subjects. And I could go on for quite a while talking about the tribe, but I have all of that information and the backstory for us getting there in the book. It's a great part of the book. I encourage you to take a look at the book and read more about it. These are the tea fields where the Akha tribe harvest the tea leaves. It's pretty much a hand harvesting process. They pinch the little delicate leaves off, collect them in baskets that they hang on the back of their head. And this was late in the day as we were leaving. We managed to catch this sunset on the fields. Beautiful skies, beautiful colors, just a beautiful landscape. On another day, we went to Quang Si Falls, and these are considered some of the most beautiful waterfalls in Thailand. It's a great place to take photographs. You can climb up from the parking lot through numerous layers of these ponds until you get to the bigger falls, and even climb up to the top of the falls if you're that daring with your cameras. This is one of my favorites. Just the colors, the serenity of this setting, I think, is captured here. There's several other photos of the falls in the book. And we also made a trip in Laos to an elephant conservatory. We were there early in the day where the mahouts, which are the caretakers for the elephant, were giving them baths in the river. And the mahouts are paired with an elephant, young in life, both the young boy and the elephant. And they spend their lives together, growing up and develop a very strong relationship. And these sanctuaries, these conservatories, are now funded by the government because the elephants were being killed off by the workload. Elephants were primarily used for harvesting timber, and the families that had an elephant could not spare the time to take them out of breeding long enough for them to raise a young elephant. So many times they were prohibited from breeding and just worked past their productive stage in life. But today, the governments of Laos and Thailand and other Southeast Asian countries are looking to preserve the elephants and to hire the mahouts who take care of them to provide for a much better opportunity for the elephants. Another place we visited was Kampong Kliang. This is a floating village on the edge of tonle-sap, which is a gigantic floodplain. It's hard to believe, but during the rainy seasons, the water can rise 30 feet, and it becomes one of the most productive fishing grounds in the country, providing about a third of the protein to the peoples of the country, particularly in Cambodia. And you can see that these houses are built on stilts as this road comes down and goes more and more into the heart of the town. This is on the edge, but you can see where the water actually comes up to the bottom of the structures in the rainy season. This is also gives you some idea of the amount of the water that's down. When we were there, the water was low. It was not the rainy season, but during the rainy season, the water rises up so that the boats actually come right up to the ground levels. And this is a village for shopping. People live here. And there's two populations. So there's the population that lives in the stilt homes, and there's the population that lives in the floating homes. The floating homes are more migratory, and they're considered to be a lower class, even though the income and the lifestyle is pretty much the same between both of them. There's more of this in the book. I encourage you to take a look. You'll see a lot more photographs of the floating city and a little bit more research on the different floating villages around tonle-sap. When we were in the Angkor-wat area, we walked out to the villages, and one of the things we noticed is that the adults left their children at home while they went to work. All these little these small homes were um, were tended by young children, and the oldest child was tending after the next oldest child, who cared for the youngest child. And you can see from this very young girl that she is taking on the role of the mother for the young boy, and her younger sister also is very caring and interested. These children were more than happy to have me take their picture, and I think it's a very beautiful, poignant photo, very emotional, very sincere, very humble, which represents the life of these people who, again, eschew eschew wealth and material possessions as part of their Buddhist religion. This is also on the edge of tonle-sap. Again, this is the dry season where the local people harvest rice in the edge of the fields. There are a variety of different types of rice. Some of them grow in deeper water than others. In this case, these two boys were just running and playing in the fields, and they were really excited to see us. They were very playful, very happy kids. When the rain season comes, this is completely flooded underground, and of course, the rice has to be replanted after the water subsides. One of the most famous landmarks in Indochina is Angkor-wat. And this is Angkor-wat as the sun is rising. We were so lucky to be brought in here. The access is restricted, and you really can't get in except for normally about 10 minutes before the sun comes up. Our guide knew someone at one of the gates. I imagine he paid him a special fee for us to get in before sunrise. And we were positioned right at the edge of the water as the sky began to lighten up and the sun began to rise behind Angkor-wat. When we sat down our cameras, it was pitch dark. I could see nothing of what was in front of me. It was just looking into the black abyss. But our guide put my camera and tripod down, and he said, aim it in that direction and you will see an amazing sunrise. And I followed his instructions, and sure enough, as the sun came up, this is the view that we got. This is a HDR photo, which was a combination of multiple exposures at slightly different points during the sunrise, which allowed a little bit of light to fill in the foreground while still silhouetting the sky in the background. The beautiful part about this is when I looked behind me, there were people, 150 feet deep, elbow to elbow, trying to take this same shot, but I was in the front row. I had my feet in the water, and there was no one else to block my view. So I feel very, very privileged to have had this opportunity to get such an iconic view of Angkor-wat. Angkor-wat's a big area. It was developed over several centuries by different kings, and this is also an infrared photo. The time of day was for harsh lighting. Even though we were in the shade, I still had my infrared camera out and chose to make several photographs, a lot of it because of the leaves and the foliage, which show up snow white in infrared photography. This is in an area that's called Dobrow. It's one of the older areas of the Angkor-wat environs. This is also near Dobrow, shot with infrared film, and this temple has been restored quite well. Most of the temples in the area had fallen to disrepair and have been taken over by nature. This is Dobrow, and it's probably one of the more famous ruins because of the way the trees have integrated into the ruins, and it's kind of create a balance that the preservation teams have sought to maintain to kind of just present this sense of destruction and submission to nature with still the preservation of the ruins. This was I guess what you would probably title astral photography. This was a 30-second exposure that was made, and I used a bright LED lamp to light up the foreground while the sky was exposing, and we were able to see an enormous amount of stars and celestial bodies silhouetted against the sky as well before the sun came up, and the lights in the city were far enough away that we were not it didn't bleed out the sky. We ran across several monks of all ages. The people from Southeast Asia are a very large percent Buddhists, and many times during their life they may go in and out of the practice of being a monk or a nun, which is a female monk. And they do this many times. They run into hardships, financial hardships, and even the families may send their children to the monasteries to be monks for a period of time if they're having a problem with earning income. And the community takes care of the monks. They in the morning they parade through the different towns and villages and receive alms, which is a charity which feeds them and gives them the bare essentials while they contemplate their existence, living with absolutely no material possessions whatsoever. This is an amazing shot of a temple called Preah Khan. Preah Khan has some of the largest trees that have taken it over, and the trees have become part of the infrastructure, not only tearing it down but holding it up. And they do careful pruning now of the roots to try to keep it in a situation of stasis. And I just love the massive nature of these trees and a sense of scale of the young monks sitting out here in front of this temple that's been here for centuries. And of course the light was beautiful as well. We were able to capture the shadows as the day became later, and you get this warmth of the daylight. Interesting, the young monk's hands, very long fingers, long fingernails. Here we are in Vietnam. This is an oyster farm, and they farm the oysters for the pearls. The water out there is not very deep. It goes on for a long, long way. And there are a lot of locals that will try to sell their goods to passersby. There's a store, which is a formal store that sells the jewelry and the processed pearls. And the locals are not allowed to get within like 100 feet of that store. But if you take a walk down the road, you will be met aggressively by the women, and they will have handfuls of black pearls, pink pearls, white pearls, you name it, that they've harvested that have not been sold to the jewelry store. And you're able to get them at just a fraction of the price that you would see in the jewelry store. And of course, the roadside jewelry store is way, way less expensive than you'll find in the cities. This is a Japanese bridge. It's historic in the town of Hoi-an. Hoi-an has been a crossroads of cultures as a market and a port between the mainland and other cultures and civilizations throughout the eastern side of Indochina. And this is one of the landmarks. It's very Japanese, and it was evidently one of the earlier structures that was built in the city. It's still very well preserved. Vietnam has a culture that kind of separates itself from the rest of the Indochina countries that I visited. One of their items of national identity is the non-la conical hat. And you don't really see these that much outside of Vietnam, but in Vietnam they are a way of life. It's part of the national identity of Vietnam. We had a chance to photograph this beautiful young lady. She came to us wearing an ao dai, which is a national uniform that is also very much identified with the Vietnamese culture. Here she is with the ao dai. This was a national garment that was mandated in the court of the Ninh Yen, and I apologize for the pronunciation if I did that wrong, but in the court of the Ninh Yen lords. It was for aristocrats, and in recent years it has been retailored to become an outfit for women. It's been retailored to be tight-fitting and to emphasize the curves of the female figure. And this is what the ao dai garment looks like with the traditional hat. And this is one of the final images I have in this portfolio. We see a lot of the Vietnamese women who come to market with their produce and other goods. They carry them on these platforms, balanced on their shoulder, and they can move around as they need. Again, wearing the traditional hat. And we also notice the clothing that this woman is wearing is not that unusual. There seems to be a lot of interest in these paisley patterns and these plaid patterns that are many times worn in combination. And this is the book that I've given you a quick name. I encourage you to visit my website and click on the photo books tab up here in the menu, and you can order one directly. I have a few signed copies available to ship immediately, and it's a very beautiful story that goes along with the beautiful photography. I appreciate everyone tuning in to follow me on this talk today. I hope you found it interesting, and I encourage you to follow up more with the book, learn about my personal exposure and experience where I transitioned from a child afraid of going to Vietnam and fighting a war that I did not believe in and killing people against my beliefs, to becoming a tourist and a photographer visiting a region of the world that has transitioned and transformed away from a wartime culture and become a very interesting, beautiful place to visit. Thank you, and I hope you'll turn in next to my next talk. I have them coming up throughout Atlanta Celebrates Photography every Wednesday and Saturday at 3 p.m. And sometimes I'll also have a talk on Friday, at 4 o'clock, when I have an extra portfolio to present. And I hope you all will tune in. And thank you very much for your attentiveness and participation today.